In this journey through the art of subtle influence, I invite you to consider a profound question. What if the greatest battles we face are not fought with weapons, but with wisdom? Imagine a world where victories are achieved not through destruction, but through understanding, where persuasion reshapes perspectives more powerfully than any force. If this resonates with you, make sure to subscribe to this channel for more reflections that inspire and challenge the way you think. Don't forget to like the video if this topic intrigues you. Now, let us delve deeper into the subtle yet transformative realm of influence. True mastery in overcoming opposition lies not in conflict, but in the ability to guide the thoughts of others toward a new path without force or coercion. The idea of triumphing over an adversary may often conjure images of clashing ideals or heated debates. However, the most enduring victories often occur in the quiet spaces of the mind, where thoughts shift and beliefs evolve without confrontation. This art transcends fleeting triumphs and speaks to something far more profound: the ability to foster internal change. The human mind is deeply attached to its convictions, often perceiving challenges to those beliefs as personal attacks. Therefore, the power to influence does not stem from loud proclamations or grand gestures, but from planting subtle questions that cause the foundation of certainty to tremble just enough for reflection to take root. A well-placed thought, shared in humility, can act like a key that opens the door to new perspectives. The brilliance of this approach lies not in tearing down the defenses of others, but in offering a new framework that feels like a discovery rather than a defeat. Imagine, for instance, a moment of disagreement with someone who holds tightly to a belief. If you meet their resistance with force, they will likely double down, fortifying their views out of pride or fear of change. However, when you gently offer an alternative viewpoint through an example or a story that resonates emotionally, you create a space where reconsideration can quietly occur. In that moment, you are not imposing a new belief, but rather illuminating another possibility they may have overlooked. This is not manipulation, it is the art of inspiring growth, where the seeds of doubt are planted not to undermine, but to nurture wisdom. The quiet power of influence lies in its capacity to be undetectable, like the steady tide that reshapes the shoreline over time. It is often more effective to listen intently and speak sparingly than to dominate a conversation. By demonstrating understanding and empathy, you soften the mental walls that people often build to protect their views. When individuals feel truly heard, they become more receptive to ideas they would have otherwise dismissed. This subtle art also calls for immense self-discipline. It requires the humility to resist the temptation to win an argument for the sake of ego and instead focus on meaningful connection. In a world driven by instant gratification, where winning is often seen as the ultimate goal, there is a quiet strength in practicing restraint and patience. True influence is not about proving others wrong. It is about elevating the conversation and inviting others to see a broader horizon. As we move further into this exploration, consider the moments in your own life where you've experienced a change of heart. Was it because someone argued relentlessly, or was it due to a quiet realization that grew within you, sparked by a story, a moment, or a thoughtful word? These transformations are rarely abrupt, but often gradual, unfolding in ways that are gentle yet profound. The heart of this practice is integrity. Influence born from deception or manipulation may yield short-term gains, but it corrodes trust and diminishes respect. On the other hand, when your approach is rooted in authenticity and respect, your words hold weight. People sense when they are being guided by truth rather than trickery. The most impactful leaders and thinkers throughout history were not those who shouted the loudest, but those who spoke with clarity, conviction, and compassion. When you engage in the battle of ideas, consider this. The goal is not to defeat the other person, but to cultivate a shared pursuit of understanding. By doing so, you create an environment where growth is possible for both sides. Even if your ideas are not immediately accepted, you leave behind the impression of respect and openness that may influence their future reflections. If this approach to influence resonates with you, I invite you to reflect on how you can bring it into your daily interactions. Influence is not reserved for leaders alone. It is woven into the fabric of every conversation and connection we have. Imagine standing at the crossroads of a disagreement, faced with two choices: to clash in confrontation or to lead with quiet influence. The path of force may seem tempting, a chance to assert dominance and win in the moment. But what if the truest victory lies not in overpowering another, but in reshaping the landscape of thought itself? When we reflect on this, we begin to see that every interaction holds the potential to inspire, not through argument, but through connection. One of the most powerful elements of subtle influence is the art of asking the right questions. Instead of declaring someone's perspective as flawed, a thoughtful question invites introspection. Questions have a way of bypassing the defenses that statements often trigger. When someone is asked, "What led you to that conclusion?" or "Have you considered how this might look from another perspective?" their mind begins an internal dialogue. This quiet prompting allows space for self-exploration, planting seeds of doubt, not to destabilize but to enrich. The key is to approach such questions with genuine curiosity rather than an air of superiority. No one responds well to condescension, but when your intent is sincere, it shows, and it has the potential to disarm even the most rigid opposition. This, in turn, transforms the conversation from a battle into a shared inquiry. People are more open to change when they feel respected, not judged. In this process, silence can be your greatest ally. Many are uncomfortable with silence in conversation, feeling an urge to fill every pause with more words, more arguments, more explanations. But silence, when used thoughtfully, can serve as an invitation for the other person to fill the space with their own reflections. It can subtly encourage them to consider what has been said rather than focusing on crafting their next rebuttal. Silence speaks to the strength of self-restraint. It communicates that you are not here to overpower, but to offer clarity. Imagine a chess player who makes a move and then calmly observes. They do not rush to celebrate or defend, they wait, watching as their opponent re-evaluates the board. In much the same way, allowing for thoughtful pauses can turn an intellectual exchange into a moment of genuine realization. When you leave room for contemplation, you give the other person the dignity of arriving at their own conclusions, a far more powerful transformation than one forced upon them. Of course, this approach requires patience and a long-term vision. The quiet art of influence does not yield instant gratification. There will be moments when it feels like progress is slow or even non-existent. However, lasting change, like the growth of a mighty tree, is rarely sudden. It begins beneath the surface, where the roots take hold long before anything visible emerges. A crucial component of this approach is empathy. Understanding why someone holds their beliefs is key to engaging meaningfully with them. Perhaps their views are shaped by fear, past experiences, or cultural upbringing. By acknowledging these factors, you not only show respect but also gain insight into how to introduce new ideas in ways that resonate with their lived reality. Empathy is not agreement, it is the willingness to step into someone else's world long enough to understand their viewpoint. This understanding paves the way for influence rooted in mutual respect rather than coercion. Consider how history's most influential figures embodied this principle. Leaders like Gandhi or Martin Luther King Jr. wielded their influence not through force, but by appealing to the conscience of others. They understood that lasting victories are achieved not by crushing the opposition, but by inspiring them to see the world differently. Their strength was not in volume or aggression, but in their unwavering commitment to truth and dignity. In contrast, those who seek to dominate conversations with aggression or mockery often find that they may win the argument, but lose the trust of others. Even if they convince someone to concede in the moment, the victory is often hollow, marked by resentment rather than growth. The real triumph occurs when you inspire someone to think beyond their previous limitations and arrive at a deeper understanding of the truth. Subtle influence also involves knowing when to let go of the need to be right. There is wisdom in recognizing that not every disagreement must end with one person declared victorious. Sometimes, The most powerful impact you can have is to plant a single thought that quietly lingers in the mind long after the conversation has ended. That thought may take days, weeks, or even years to bloom, but when it does, it becomes a part of that person's inner landscape, a shift born not of defeat, but of reflection. Let this be a reminder that influence is not about winning the moment, but shaping the future. The ripples of a single respectful conversation can extend far beyond what you can see. As we continue to explore the profound impact of subtle influence, consider how often the loudest voices in the room drown out the most meaningful insights. In a world saturated with noise, those who speak with calm confidence often have the greatest impact. Why? Because true influence does not demand attention, it earns trust. When you embody calm conviction, you create an environment where others feel safe enough to listen and reflect. This is where transformation begins, not in the clamor of confrontation, but in the quiet power of authenticity. One of the most overlooked elements of influence is consistency. When your words and actions align, you become a beacon of integrity that others cannot ignore. People are naturally drawn to those who stand firm in their values, even under pressure. Consistency builds credibility, and credibility is the cornerstone of influence. If you say one thing but act in contradiction, your message loses its potency. However, when your life mirrors your principles, even those who initially disagree with you may begin to question their own positions, not because you force them to, but because they cannot deny the example you set. This is particularly important in the context of intellectual disagreements. If you advocate for patience, empathy, and self-control, but resort to anger or ridicule the moment someone challenges you, you undermine the very foundation of your influence. Instead, by responding with calm and thoughtfulness, you not only strengthen your own position, but also invite others to consider whether their reactions are rooted in truth or simply defensiveness. The way you carry yourself in moments of disagreement sends a powerful message, sometimes more powerful than the content of your words. Another essential aspect of influence is adaptability. While consistency in values is crucial, the way you present your ideas must be flexible. No two conversations are the same, and understanding how to adjust your approach based on the other person's perspective can make all the difference. Some people respond best to stories that touch their emotions, while others are more persuaded by logical arguments. The ability to recognize what resonates with someone and tailor your message accordingly demonstrates not only wisdom, but also respect for their unique way of processing information. Empathy remains central to this adaptability. It allows you to discern not only what someone believes, but why they believe it. For example, someone may hold on to a particular viewpoint not because it is logically sound, but because it offers them a sense of security or belonging. In such cases, challenging their belief outright may only heighten their resistance. Instead, offering an alternative that still honors their need for security can create an opening for reflection. Influence is not about dismantling someone's identity, it's about guiding them toward a broader perspective without taking away what makes them feel whole. There is also great strength in knowing when not to engage. Sometimes the most impactful action is inaction. When you refuse to be drawn into fruitless debates or heated arguments, you maintain control over your own narrative. By choosing not to react to provocation, you avoid validating the aggressor's tactics and instead leave space for their hostility to reflect back on themselves. In this way, your silence becomes a mirror, revealing their instability without you needing to lift a finger. This isn't passive avoidance, it's an active choice to protect your peace and influence the conversation on your own terms. Consider the analogy of a flame. When someone fans the flame with more heat and wind, it flares up, but when the wind ceases, the flame begins to dwindle. By refusing to engage in unnecessary conflict, you deprive the argument of the energy it needs to grow. This form of restraint requires immense self-awareness and strength, but its impact is undeniable. When you maintain composure, you model a level of dignity that others cannot help but respect, even if they do not immediately acknowledge it. Moreover, Influence extends beyond individual conversations. It shapes the culture of every community you're part of. Whether in friendships, workplaces, or families, the way you handle disagreements and present ideas can set the tone for how others engage with one another. When you demonstrate grace under pressure, you inspire others to follow suit. It's a ripple effect where one act of humility and thoughtfulness can foster an entire atmosphere of mutual respect and understanding. As you reflect on this, remember that influence is not measured by immediate results, but by the long-term impact you leave behind. It's easy to become discouraged when change doesn't happen right away. However, just as seeds take time to grow, the ideas you plant in others may take time to bloom. Trust in the process, knowing that even the smallest gesture of kindness or wisdom can have profound and lasting effects. In the realm of influence, patience and resilience are often your greatest allies. Shaping perspectives is rarely an instantaneous process. It unfolds gradually, like the steady current that carves its path through stone. Many become discouraged when their efforts to inspire change seem fruitless at first. But remember, lasting influence requires persistence and an unwavering commitment to your principles. The seeds of wisdom you plant today may not bear fruit until much later, but when they do, the impact is often deeper and more profound than you could have anticipated. An essential part of this process is learning to detach from the immediate need for validation. We live in a time where instant feedback is expected, where likes, shares, and quick affirmations drive much of our communication. However, true influence operates on a different timeline. Sometimes, you may never see the immediate results of your words and actions, but that doesn't mean your efforts were in vain. When you lead with authenticity and sincerity, your impact often takes root in unseen ways. Someone may reflect on your words long after the conversation has ended, reshaping their perspective in a quiet, personal moment of introspection. This is why it is so important to approach every interaction with care. You never know when your words might be the catalyst for someone's growth. Even a small gesture, a moment of understanding, a word of encouragement can linger in someone's mind far longer than you realize. And when you speak from a place of empathy and purpose, your message becomes a gift rather than a demand. It offers rather than insists, inviting others to consider rather than compelling them to comply. At the same time, influence requires discernment. Not every battle of ideas is worth engaging in, and not every person is ready for change. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away not out of defeat, but out of wisdom. Engaging with someone who is not open to dialogue can drain your energy and reinforce their resistance. Instead of trying to force change where it cannot happen, focus your energy where it can make a meaningful difference. Choose your moments with care, recognizing that influence is most effective when it is intentional rather than reactionary. In those moments where you do choose to engage, it's important to maintain a sense of intellectual humility. No matter how strong your convictions, remember that your own understanding is never complete. Being open to feedback and willing to reconsider your own perspectives doesn't make you weak, it makes you wise. People respect those who can admit when they are wrong or when they've learned something new. This openness creates an atmosphere where mutual growth becomes possible. When you show that you are more interested in the pursuit of truth than in being right, you encourage others to do the same. Consider how different conversations might be if both parties entered with a mindset of learning rather than winning. Instead of approaching disagreements as battles to be won, they would become opportunities for discovery and collaboration. This doesn't mean avoiding difficult conversations. It means approaching them with a spirit of curiosity and respect. Even when you strongly disagree, you can still seek to understand the underlying reasons for the other person's beliefs. Often, beneath the surface of disagreement lies a shared desire for truth, security, or meaning. By recognizing this, you can shift the tone of the conversation from adversarial to constructive. It is also important to remember that the goal of influence is not to erase differences, but to create bridges of understanding. You don't have to convince someone to adopt your viewpoint entirely in order to make progress. Sometimes, the greatest victory is simply fostering enough mutual respect to have an open and honest dialogue. When people feel safe to express their thoughts without fear of ridicule, they are far more likely to consider new perspectives. In this way, influence becomes a tool for connection rather than division, a way to bring people closer rather than push them further apart. Even when your influence doesn't result in immediate agreement, it can still sow the seeds for future reflection. Perhaps the person you spoke with will revisit the conversation days or months later and begin to question their assumptions. Maybe they'll read a book or hear a story that reinforces the idea you once shared. Influence is often like the wind. You may not see it working, but you can witness the movement it creates over time. Trust that your efforts, when guided by integrity and wisdom, are never wasted. As you consider these ideas, think about the conversations you've had where someone's words left a lasting impact on you. Was it their logic, their kindness, or their patience that stayed with you? What if your words could have that same effect on someone else? This is the beauty of influence. It has the power to ripple outward, touching lives in ways you may never fully know. As we reach the final part of this journey into the art of influence, I invite you to reflect on one simple truth. The greatest legacies are often built not through grand victories, but through quiet, consistent acts of integrity. Influence, at its core, is not about control. It's about creating ripples of change through patience, understanding, and authenticity. When we approach our interactions with the intention of fostering connection rather than asserting dominance, we become agents of lasting transformation. An essential part of this approach is learning how to separate ideas from identity. Many people equate their beliefs with who they are, which is why challenges to their perspectives can feel like personal attacks. If you enter a discussion with the goal of proving someone wrong, they will likely become defensive, reinforcing their position rather than reconsidering it. However, when you focus on the ideas rather than the person, you create an environment where they can engage in self-reflection without feeling threatened. Your aim is not to diminish who they are, but to invite them to expand how they see the world. This shift in focus also helps you maintain respect and empathy, even in moments of disagreement. It reminds you that the person in front of you is more than their opinions. They are shaped by experiences, fears, hopes, and dreams that you may not fully understand. By keeping this in mind, you cultivate a sense of humility that prevents conversations from devolving into arguments. Instead of aiming to win, you aim to understand. And in doing so, you model a kind of influence that transcends fleeting victories and touches the deeper layers of the human spirit. Another important element of influence is learning how to inspire self-discovery. The most enduring changes in perspective happen not when someone feels pressured to agree, but when they arrive at a new conclusion on their own terms. You can guide this process by sharing stories, asking reflective questions, or presenting new information in a way that resonates with their values. For example, rather than stating, "You're wrong about this," consider asking, "What do you think would happen if we viewed this from a different angle?" This approach invites curiosity rather than resistance. It encourages the other person to become an active participant in the conversation rather than a passive recipient of your views. In many ways, subtle influence is like being a gardener. You can't force a seed to grow by shouting at it or pulling at its leaves. Instead, you create the right conditions for growth, providing light, nourishment, and space. The same is true for conversations. When you nurture trust, listen with care, and offer thoughtful insights, you create an environment where new ideas can take root naturally. This requires patience and faith in the process. You may not see the results immediately, but over time, those seeds of wisdom can flourish in ways you never imagined. However, influence is not only about shaping others, it is also about being open to being shaped yourself. When you enter a conversation with a genuine willingness to learn, you not only demonstrate humility, but also deepen your own understanding. This mutual openness transforms discussions from mere exchanges of opinions into collaborative explorations of truth. You may discover that your own beliefs evolve as a result of these interactions, becoming more nuanced and resilient. This willingness to grow alongside others is a hallmark of true wisdom. It shows that influence is not a one-way street, but a shared journey. The final key to influence is consistency in your character. Long after words fade, people remember how you made them feel, whether you spoke with kindness or harshness, whether you acted with integrity or manipulation. Your character leaves an impression far deeper than any argument. By embodying the values you advocate for patience, empathy, and integrity, you become a living example of the principles you seek to share. This authenticity builds trust, and trust is the foundation upon which lasting influence is built. In your daily life, there will be moments where you'll be tempted to react impulsively to prove a point or to seek recognition. In those moments, remind yourself of the greater purpose behind your words. Influence is not about the applause of the moment, it's about the quiet, unseen impact that shapes hearts and minds over time. Whether in small conversations or larger platforms, every word you speak carries the potential to inspire understanding, healing, and growth. As you carry these reflections forward, consider how you can bring more intention and grace into your interactions. How can you plant seeds of wisdom in your conversations, even in the simplest of moments? Remember, influence is not reserved for those in positions of authority. It is something we all possess. Every act of kindness, every word of encouragement, every moment of restraint contributes to a ripple effect that can extend far beyond what we see. Thank you for taking this journey of reflection with me. If this exploration has resonated with you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps create a space where thoughtful conversations can continue to flourish. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. How have you seen the power of influence at work in your life? Let's continue to grow together, fostering a community grounded in respect, empathy, and the pursuit of wisdom. Your voice matters, and your story has the power to inspire others. Until next time, may your words carry the strength of understanding, and may your influence bring light to those around you.